All right, so today I'm going to be talking about premises and patterns in reconstructive reading the Bible. It's going to be tons of fun, so let's get started. All right, so in a previous video, I talked about how I reached the conclusion about how Amos was a failed prophet. If you haven't seen that video, I will link to it in the description, so be sure to check that out. But that conclusion that Amos was a failed prophet then becomes a premise. And so that's going to have a ripple effect on the rest of the text of Amos. So if I encounter another prophecy, I'm going to say, hey, Amos was a failed prophet, and maybe the biblical author is trying to reconstruct that prophecy to make it a successful prophecy because Amos's original prophecy was a failure, right? And so we saw that previously in Amos 6:1, and with the Zion glitch, taking the Amos prophecy against Zion and then redirecting it towards northern Israel. And so how the biblical author does that, that can also become a pattern. So when we reach Amos 4:1, here we have another prophecy. Hear this word, you cows of Bashan. And then we have that same type of thing here, where it's redirecting towards northern Israel, and it's even using the same phrase there, mountain of Samaria. So we can use these premises and patterns to go to other verses and help us figure out what's going on in those verses without the verses themselves explicitly telling us, right? So it's, and that causes some problems for me because typically in the past, what I've done is I've gone verse by verse, and I think my premises and patterns, they get lost in the mix, especially if, like Amos 4:1 here, it comes before the Zion glitch or any of the other verses that we use to reach the conclusion that Amos was a failed prophet. So, I think I leave myself open for being speculative because they're just going to say, hey, Amos 4:1, there's nothing in here that says that it says that Amos is a failed prophet. That's a speculation. Or, there's nothing here that says that it's being redirected to northern Israel. That's speculation. So, so I think I need to do a better job of that. But even beyond that, there can also be some premises from a metaview of the biblical authors. So how do the biblical authors do their propaganda? What are their strategies and their techniques to interact with the narratives that they're interacting with? And so that's kind of what I was touching on in a previous video where I talked about mirror reading signals. And I'll put that video in the description as well. But where the biblical authors, where these mirror reading signals, it's not evidence in and of themselves, but from previous reconstructive readings, I know when certain things happen in the text, that usually indicates, some kind of propaganda or some kind of technique they're using to spin the original narrative in a different direction. And so same thing here with Amos. I'm going to take that metaview of the biblical authors into the book of Amos with me as well. So even when the individual verses don't have direct evidence per se, I can use that metaview of the biblical authors to try to figure out what's going on. So, it makes me think, well, maybe I shouldn't do verse by verse. I mean, I really like going through the Bible verse by verse for you guys, but If you want to check that out, be sure to check out my podcast. It's because that's where I've done it so far. But I'll probably be moving over to video and doing it on YouTube from now on. But maybe doing it premise by premise is the better way to go, because I think it really helps people understand how I reach the conclusions that I reach. And I've gotten some good feedback on the Amos examples that I gave in the previous video. So it's something I'll probably be exploring in the future, and maybe I'll do both. After I do the premise by premise, I'll do a verse by verse, so that you can get the narrative flow of things. So that's all I wanted to say today. Thanks for watching.